Welcome everyone to a casted game for Age of Empires 4, and today spawning in the north corner of the map, playing in blue, we've got marinelord playing as the Chinese. And his opponent in the south, playing in red, we've got myriad playing as the English. Welcome everyone to Continental. Now I know what you're thinking, we've not seen this map before. Well, it's because it's relatively new. Kind of excited to see this one pan out. Obviously we love seeing new strategies, we love seeing new maps, and that's what we've got today. The Chinese versus the English. With a hybrid map like this, of course, water is very important, and you've got the English with the cheaper fishing ships. Gonna get that eco rocking and rolling. The Chinese on the other side of the map will have a really good wood eco, and then subsequently, of course, food eco. It kind of depends actually, because there's a build and there's a timing to it in terms of getting the Imperial Official. The Imperial Official can supervise the lumber camp that will usually be built, and then pump out plenty of fishing boats from there. Obviously, it's gotta wait a little bit for that to actually happen, and some people do actually wait for the tech up to the Feudal Age, which is a bit of a delay on things. Typically on this Chinese build on hybrid maps, you get sort of about 7 or 8 villages on wood. Speaking of which, let's go to the village count. And then you do typically get a lumber camp with the Imperial Official, which we'll see what marinelord looks to do today. The English are great civilization, of course, lots of changes. Of course, the new Abbey of the Kings, or the new look Abbey of the Kings, get the king for free. Can try and put some early pressure on against the Chinese, but you know, the Barbican of the Sun should be able to help him stay well protected. It's definitely going to be a cracking game, right? New map in particular. Looking at the sacred sites, actually kind of crazy. 3 sacred sites. 2 of them very, I guess, myriad favoured there on his side of the map. 1 there for marinelord, which is right next door. Kind of cool to see at the relics as well. There's 2 relics on either corner of the map, on each 4 of them. Each 4 corners, so there's plenty of relics to pick up as time wears on, but of course they're going to have to get transport ships to actually access them. I hope you guys are having a great morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world, and enjoying your day so far. Hopefully today will get even better with the games coming our way today. And if you guys are watching and tuning in live on Twitch, welcome on in. Great to have you here. Excited for this one. I wonder whether trade could be even a thing actually on this map. You got the new trade posts, possibly on water. It's possibly a thing, but it's going to be a tricky one, right? Especially considering both land and water aggression could be a thing. You're going to have to find that fine balance. And yeah, there is that Imperial Official. There is that lumber camp. There's the age-old Chinese water build that we're seeing marinelord do at the moment. Scout going ahead for myriad just to find out exactly what he's up against. Now, with the play into water, you typically see the Chinese stick around with 1 TC, maybe multiple docks, which we'll see what he actually tries to do with this. Song Dynasty can still be pretty nifty, even with just 1 town centre. Definitely worthwhile. The English, of course, with cheaper farms, will make a good amount of fishing ships, no doubt about it. But early on in sort of these kind of maps, it can be a little bit slow to get going, but as I say often with Age of Empires 4, with games that get slow to get going, trust me when I say, they definitely heat up as time goes on. Now, considering the map, pretty small in some ways. Of course, a lot of it taken up by water. Wood could potentially become an issue if it is a late game sort of situation, which is quite possibly going to be the case considering the 2 civilizations that are involved, of course. The Chinese and the English do thrive on that late game. And yeah, the great thing is they do have the 8,000 tile gold veins on some of the new maps, actually. Coastal Cliffs comes to mind. You don't actually get the 8,000 tile of gold on the map. They're stuck with 4,000, so there's plenty of gold to actually be mopped up on this one. It's quite likely this could go to the mid to late game. We do love those sorts of games. Lots of strategic decisions are going to be needed to be made. Now, I suspect it's going to be the Imperial Academy for the Chinese to open up nice and early. I don't think the threat of the king is too real at the start, especially with everything so condensed, although this gold vein is a little bit exposed. You typically don't need that much gold anyway in the Feudal Age, potentially for some demolition ships, potentially for yeah, that's kind of it really, and the war junks, of course. But other than that, your regular junks, your archer ships, don't need any gold. And of course, the Chinese can always, in a pinch, rely on the Imperial Official collecting that tax, of course. Going on with 6 villagers for that Abbey of Kings. Wants to get that king pretty early, actually, here. And I wonder whether that fast tech up could be because he's thinking about sending some military ships across the map. That's commonly done actually. When you want to try and rush to the Feudal Age, that is usually one of the reasons to do so. Yeah, it's definitely playing that condensed economy. The threat of the king is obviously playing on marinelord's mind, but there's no real threat here with all these palisades, and it's not even that much of a wood investment, so definitely worthwhile, especially considering you're very heavy on wood anyway, so you don't really have to change your build too much. It's got the second dock up anyway. Yeah, and that food economy is going to be rocking and rolling. Just a single dock for Myriad at the moment, although this village are possibly going to look to build the second. Now, I was kind of curious on these types of maps. Like, you can sometimes even just skip Feudal Age, especially with the civilization like the Chinese, with how great their economy is rocking and rolling early on. It looks like instead, though, it's going to opt for a stable opening to put some pressure with some horsemen, get across the map, and that mobility is going to be key. And he has actually opted for an archery range behind this here, Myriad. So he's going to be opting for the king and the... Oh, what's he trying here with the boar? Trying a bit of a cheeky play there, Myriad. Doesn't quite work out for him. The leash on the boar is just a bit too much. Try to maybe aggro it onto a villager or two. But the stable opening is actually going to be fantastic. He's actually supervising it as well. So it looks like he is anyway. Maybe not, actually. But he did pump out a couple of horsemen nice and early. That would be great to deal with the longbows that were heading across the map. Longbow will be caught out, so Myriad is only going to have to opt for a couple of more longbows to group together and move on out. Maybe add in a couple of spears, hence the barracks. Has deployed the palings. Marinelord jumps onto it though. And, well, I think Myriad should take care of this eventually. And he will. First galley though, moving across the map, Myriad. So that was the reason for the quick timing, but ultimately by the time you get across the map, there's two docks here. Marinelord will have the defender's advantage. I think on a map like Continental, actually, because it's such a long distance to get across the map, I don't think there's going to be too much aggression on water. Not in the early game, anyway. It feels like the value had is very limited in terms of, especially being delayed, right? You've invested quite a lot of resources into that archer ship. By the time it gets across the map, your opponent is probably going to be able to deal with that. So yeah, going for a faster Feudal Age doesn't really feel too valuable on this map. Knight just poking his head through so you can get some value, but of course plenty of horsemen there to defend. And he'll be fine here, marinelord. Another archery range added in, so definitely seems like a heavy play to Feudal Age here for Myriad. He's definitely going for it. I think definitely the spearmen added here and there will definitely be the play here for Myriad. Won't want to play just full longbows into these horsemen. Especially when he's starting to add in those Chukunu high damage output unit. The problem about the spearmen numbers, they are going to be targeted down by the Chukunu. The king's going to need to try and deal with that. Longbows have to target the Chukunu really and allow the spearmen to work their magic on the horseman. He is engaging it a little bit, Myriad, and there's a good engagement in the end. The longbows get a little bit of a hit on the horseman on the retreat. And that woodline is kind of under pressure. It's actually a bit of a tricky situation for Marinelord, not protecting that woodline. He doesn't have much more wood to go to. So I do love this early aggression from Myriad. It's causing a lot of idle time. So the Barbican and the Sun, though, going to be placed on the west side, and he might lose one or two more villages, but I mean, his overall is not going to be too terrible. The main thing is that he gets this woodline protected, and the gold veins as well, to be fair. The only thing for Myriad, he's got a decision to make, right? If he focuses on the villagers, it's quite likely he'll lose most of his army. He does focus on a couple of villages. Killed 5 so far, which is definitely a great start, but bear in mind Song Dynasty comes into play here. So the villager deficit will start to narrow down a little bit. Although, the docks will have something to say at that. I think that's the third dock now for Myriad. No, actually, it looks like it's just the second, though. 2 docks for both players. Marinelord is going to play a bit of a catch-up here with the villager count. But not too drastic amount of damage done, considering the investment. The question is, from here, who's going to blink first? Who's going to look to go to the castle age? Either player could potentially do it. Could there be a mad dash for the relics? Considering this particular matchup does typically tend to go to the mid to late game, relics could be quite important, especially for the Chinese, of course. We know all about the English closure farms, which could come into play, although it's a bit tricky on hybrid maps, right? Because you're pretty much focusing on fishing economy. There does come a point where actually most of the fish does get harvested, although the deep water fish does regenerate, of course. I wonder whether Myriad will start to posture towards farms in the mid to late game, just to maybe benefit from enclosures later on. What he's definitely got to do is stave off this attack with the horsemen. Plenty of them. Going to dive on that woodline potentially. Spearman chasing. On the west side, their longbowmen getting some good value. That woodline is really still exposed. The range of the longbowmen really helping out here. Picks off a couple more. He's lost 11 villagers so far here, marinelord. He's definitely under pressure. A great amount of aggression coming out for myriad. Definitely staking a claim for this game. Looks like myriad might be posturing towards that castle age as well with the food and gold he's got in the bank. Yeah, sizable number of villagers on gold. 7 of them. It definitely seems that way. No real other reason to spend, no other way to spend gold. Unless he goes for man at arms, which is relatively unlikely. So myriad going to be opting for that castle age. It does then raise some questions. Does he go for the White Tower or the King's Palace? He's got to be careful about this though. He might lose a lot of villagers. He's not reacting. Myriad. Oh, this is going to be painful. And the way marinelord did this is that he made sure he closed the gap before actually, attacking. Just to make sure he gets maximum value, and that's exactly what's happening. He loses quite a lot. Now, he does equalize things a little bit hit. marinelord with that little aggression. Might go for round 2, myriad, but there's nothing to be found here on this woodline. Looks like marinelord has opted back for his primary one, which is pretty much already taken. Gets an outpost for defense, but we will see the tech up. But yeah, on that thought about the tech up to the castle age for the English, will he go for the White Tower or the King's Palace? It feels like King's Palace would make a lot of sense. Now, White Tower, of course, gives that immediate defensive structure, but on a map like this where he's actually being aggressive and has got a lot of map control already in the forward positions, it feels like King's Palace does add a lot more depth, especially when you're up against the Song Dynasty. You kind of want to equalize things a little bit, although he's going to get his army a little bit sandwiched here. Horsemen dive in. At least the Spearman will get some good HP trade on this, to be fair. It could have gone a lot worse here for myriad, all things considered. Felt like marinelord was a little bit impatient there to engage with the horsemen. But overall, of course, myriad will be likely to lose this army, but he makes the most of it, actually, to be fair, and I think he extracts a decent amount of value, all things considered. Got a bit of an army on the west side. Might actually have to head back home. Like, when you do take up to the next stage, it's kind of when you're vulnerable. And it does feel like myriad is a little bit vulnerable. There are 3 things that I feel like I look for when people do take up. It's whether you've got static defenses to buy yourself time. Do you have a standing army? Again, to buy yourself time. Do you have a way of keeping your enemy army back at home so they don't attack you? And it, unfortunately for myriad, it doesn't really feel like it's got either or any of those 3 factors. So this could be a bit of a dicey one. He will get to the next stage, and the great thing for it is that positioning's on the woodline. It does feel like on this map, woodline's pretty exposed, especially with how kind of thin they are. The primary woodline already expired here from myriad. I had to venture out elsewhere, and the King's Palace will help him defend that location. So relatively fine, I think, at the stage with the tech up. I think marinelord, instead of being aggressive, is going to go for the tech up himself, and I think it makes a lot of sense. What's kind of concerning, though, for the English is that the tech up for the Chinese is likely to be the astronomical clock tower. And that obviously gives them the important siege engines that the Chinese love to get in STBs, of course. And that does mean that myriad will either have to think about getting a siege workshop of his own for some springalds, or maybe start to veer away from the heavy infantry line. Maybe sprinkle a couple more man-at-arms in there that maybe fare a little bit up against the STBs, but ultimately infantry and STBs don't tend to go together. And it will be that astronomical clock tower for marinelord. Going to be building it quick time. The great thing about the Chinese, though, if you do get out-teched quickly, your opponent techs up to the castle age, as long as your eco's not totally out of whack, you're going to get there pretty similar time, right? You just rush it down with plenty of villagers. Of course, the Chinese villagers do build a bit faster, and it looks like myriad going to try to make the most of his tech up there with the veterancy, but by the time he actually gets to his opponent's base, well, there you have it. The Chinese are already in the castle age. Will take a bit of time for the tech ups to come in, for the upgrades, for the veterancy, but of course the Chinese can supervise that. Make it go extra fast. We'll kill a couple of villagers here. Gold is possibly going to be an issue, that this one has to be protected. I feel like one palisade here to the coast from marinelord would actually achieve a lot. Looks like myriad looking to dive on in here. And the thing about the English, by the way, regardless of the map, there is a kind of a game mechanical, kind of the way they play, is that if you get caught in a position, it's very hard to retreat. The mobility is not on their side, and so if you're going to dive in like this, you've got to be sure you're going to be either be happy to take the trade of the army, or, you feel like you can do a lot of damage. If not, then, it's not a good idea. He's going to back away. marinelord playing it relatively tentatively, doesn't want to engage too quickly. He doesn't want to engage until he gets the veterancy upgrades in, and they are now at the moment. Getting balanced projectiles just for this Chickanoo, that should be able to dish out a lot of damage. This is where things start to snowball either way. Horsemen going to dive in, tank in as much as they possibly can. Doesn't want to engage against these spearmen for obvious reasons. A couple of man-at-arms sprinkled in there. I love that play by Myriad. That's actually going to soak up a lot of Jugunu damage, but oh, the longbow didn't keep up, so these are man-at-arms pushing in for no real reason. And the great thing for Myriad, though, he's pumping. He's getting plenty of more units. Like the early villager kills, he's killed 15 so far. It's actually starting to hit the eco a little bit for Myriad. Don't forget, Myriad is on 2 town centres, effectively. So his economy will be scaling. He's got a good forward position, got good military numbers, and things are looking actually really good for Myriad at this point. But there's the nest of bees. That's the first one. Good shot on there, but good reaction by Myriad. Sends the man-at-arms to chase it on down. Gets the spread formation on the longbows, which is exactly what it needs to do. Second volley of the nest of bees doesn't actually make it out there. That's a really good snipe. And I think at this point, considering the position of the astronomical clock tower, it's a bit unfortunate there for marinelord. It's a very difficult position to defend. And I wouldn't be surprised to see Myriad actually just look to torch this down, although I think half of his units focusing on the mining camp, which is less than ideal. On waters, we're seeing the fishing ships having to venture out a little bit further to get the food. Yeah, that's unfortunate. It'd be really rough actually if a nest of bees pops out anytime soon. Couple of man-at-arms going for that wood line. Mostly to try and idle things as much as possible. A couple of lancers and horsemen for the Chinese, though, gonna run into that and take care of it quite quickly. But it is buying a bit of time for this army here to get more torches out on this astronomical clock tower, which you will not want to lose, marinelord. That siege production capabilities is actually going to be pretty impressive if you can keep it alive and then work with it. Looks like he's going to lose it. Gone for the relics, actually double monetary production, so I suspect we'll see some transport ships before too long. And I think it's definitely a good play because there's plenty of relics on the map, especially if this game goes late, which is high potential with these two civilizations involved. Myriad diving in once again, should get a good number of villager kills. Myriad getting plenty of them actually. marinelord was a bit slow to move a couple of villages away from that wood line. He's paying the price for it now. Chukunu can have to hold in this choke point, and he's going to dive on in. I think this is great for Myriad. I mean, he's going to take the trade on the army, to be fair. He's got plenty of Chukunu protecting the villages, and he's still picking off the villagers, Myriad. I think it's a nice play, definitely, to focus on the economy, because he should be okay at home. Man-at-arms tanking against the cavalry. Longbows picking off the stray villagers on the woodline, and marinelord, he's just not moving them. Now, ultimately, marinelord will take care of this, but more units streaming forward from Myriad. Getting forward positions, I love the addition of the outpost, actually. This is something that's actually really important for the English, getting the position on the map, and more importantly, extending that network of castles, just so that when he does take more fights in the middle of the map, he's going to have a much bigger buff on them. In fact, it's even affecting these man-at-arms, would you believe? That's a big deal. The right side, there's a transport ship. Wait, where's he off to? There's no monk in there, but it is what it is. Looks like he's picked up the relics on the west side already here, Myriad, with all this advantage. He's got the relics here on the left side. And he's looking in a good spot. If you can sneakily take the ones in the north, that'd be ideal. Yeah, but the steam has kind of run out here for Myriad, so he will have to group together. But look at this. This is the staging ground to attack from. This outpost gives him a really good position. And looks like he's adding in a couple of farms as well, which I love to see, because you might be tempted just to stick with water. But I mean, ultimately, you will look to get enclosures, and as the game wears on, where gold becomes a bit more of an issue. He's diving in a little bit here. There's plenty of Chukunu. I think this might be a bit of an overbite here for Myriad. He's going to take the trade on the units. Can't really retreat out of here too effectively, so he will lose a couple of units on the retreat. But you know, he's had some good success already. The concern for Myriad is there has been a switch into crossbowmen, which makes a lot of sense for marinelord, right? He's up against the man-at-arms, which you typically see from the English, and it's going to be down to the English now to switch things up a little bit. Could potentially think about crossbows of his own, actually, to be fair. Could think about maybe adding some horsemen in. This looks like he's going to go for the archer range instead. Maybe longbows. Could add in some rams. Oh, he cancels it. He thought about it. He thought maybe not. He doesn't want to give that knowledge away, because marinelord would have spotted it. This is where it becomes a little bit tricky, right? marinelord microing with his ranged units, getting a lot of value from them. Man-at-arms going to dive in. He feels like now's the time to go. He's going to dive underneath the Barbican and the Sun, and yeah, myriad is actually losing quite a few units here for free. It's a tricky position, right? Because he wants to push on in. At the same time, it doesn't really feel like he has enough just yet. Marinelord just balancing that economy ever so slightly. The Barbican and the Sun, though, is getting some good value at this point. He's picked up the relics on the west side, completely empty as an island. In the south, he's making a mad dash for it with the two monks. And that's going to be really great for the gold income, of course, for Myriad. Also, there's a bit of stone being gathered here for Marinelord, possibly thinking about a keep as he ventures out to secure other areas of the map. I love these walls, by the way, for Myriad. It's actually going to carve up a lot of the map. We are kind of reaching into that time zone, 20-22 minutes, where you think about those 8,000 tiled gold veins. They become super important at this stage of the game, and I love the fact that Marinelord is going for stone, though, for a keep. Myriad is kind of just missing out on that little bit of a details, floating a lot of wood, which is actually a bit of a concern, because if he actually had... I mean, you know, he's floating a good 1,000 wood. If he had 1,000 stone instead, that would actually be a big deal. Unfortunately, the walls won't go up there on the right side. It's been spotted by Marinelord. We'll cut it off with a couple of lancers. Rams coming on in. Looks like Myriad is going to make a play for the middle. I love this approach, actually, because often when you have relatively equal numbers of military, actually sprinkling in a ram or two does add a bit of a problem for the opponent, because it forces the opponent to make a decision. Does he start to target the rams, or does he just continue targeting the army? In many cases, they'll target the army, which then means your rams, you know, they've got some damage output. They could take some infrastructure, which is obviously exactly what you want to be doing. All these villagers, they're kind of caught out. There's not enough crossbows here for Myriad, only 3 of them, and there's 4 lancers overall, though he has the defender's advantage, okay, of course, so he'll be alright, eventually. Committed to 3 rams, and he's got plenty of wood to do so, so I think it makes a lot of sense, right? When you're floating this amount of wood, there's no reason why you wouldn't do this. The horsemen, though, as we can see, they're focusing on the rams for now. Manitoms will chomp them up to pieces, and good number of crossbows and longbows at the back line for Myriad, but I don't know if it's quite got enough, because there's a decent chunk of crossbows there for Marinelord. Probably has enough to one-shot the man-at-arms, they definitely do, and those rams now they're pretty exposed. Of course, Marinelord can just repair on in. I mean, I think the Barbican will go down if he doesn't actually start to repair this. I don't think the torch damage is enough, and he will lose the Barbican, believe it or not. That's a curious choice, actually. Surprised that you didn't see him actually repair the Barbican to try and avoid losing it. Perhaps felt like he couldn't stop losing it anyway. Transport ship getting ready to pick up the relics on the right side. 4 so far. Wait, is he snuck? Oh, that's cheeky. That's very cheeky. Although, what happened to the transport ship? Is that what the empty transport ship was earlier? I don't think it was. He's unfortunately stuck with the monks. I guess Marinelord's not going to chase that now, which is kind of cool, because even though Myriad technically doesn't have them, I guess Marinelord is probably not going to go for them. Probably thinks he's lost them. But again, I think now Marinelord's economy is starting to kind of kick in, right? Like, we can't underestimate the power of the Imperial officials and the supervision. It's starting to escalate. He's looking to repair that Barbican Sun, which is about to go up, and Myriad's starting to lose his position in the middle. His army doesn't look as strong as it once used to be. He's having to reset. He's had a hard farming transition, which is not too terrible as the English. Of course, cheaper farms doesn't hurt too bad. But he's definitely setting himself up to the late game. I like the switch. I really do, because he will eventually need to go for enclosures for that passive god generation. I feel like farms with enclosures of the English probably does outstrip the quality of fishing economy, all things considered. But a good number of crossbows. It does feel like Myriad needs a tech switch to try and deal with those crossbow numbers, either longbows or horsemen at some point. He's going to stick with what he's got so far at the moment. But Marinelord's certainly pressuring in. The great thing for Myriad, though, with the aggression that he's had, the map positioning, he has actually achieved a lot with it. Although at the moment now, it looks like Marinelord's starting to make a play for the waters. We'll lose a couple of military ships. He never actually picked up those relics on the right side in the end just yet, Myriad. So hopefully he'll pick them up. Slowly but surely, though, he is looking to lose a bit of positioning. This is not ideal. It's a bit concerning, to say the least. Going to try and protect this gold vein on the right side. Plenty of farms to protect as well. And I think definitely now commitment into defense for the English is going to be key, which, you know, it's something they do well, to be fair. But I think he's got to find a way to deal with this crossbow mass, and man-at-arms will not be the answer. Going to be diving on that wood line, but not too much to take. Just a couple of villagers, 3 of them. Marinelord would happily oblige if he could. Decides to run on past. And he's going to back away. Now he's going to be making a play for the relics. That village, I wonder how he died. That's strange. Horseman diving on the back. Yeah, even more farming transitions. Speaking of farming transitions, by the way, the Chinese might need to do the same relatively soon, because yeah, there's still some deep water fish. Actually, to me, there's plenty left. But he's having to venture out further and further, right, on the west side as well. There's not a lot of space for a farming transition. This could be an area. There's already deer on board to take, though, to be fair still. Looking to get his own palisades, just to make sure he's safe and secure. Putting a bit of pressure now on the waters. Looks like it's going to be the Wingguard Palace for Myriad. It's an interesting choice, actually. I quite like it. You got the access to some premium units. The best thing about the Wingguard Palace as well is not so much the batch production, which is pretty decent, but it's more about the fact that you can get fully upgraded units without actually having the technologies for them. Like, you can get fully upgraded knights, you can get fully upgraded, well, rangers, without really getting anything for it. I don't... Yeah, I mean, he's given the wall a little... It's unfortunate he activated both of them. I mean, ultimately, these relics now do belong to Marinelord, and he did notice that they weren't actually garrisoned or taken fully. I'm sure the horsemen will dive on that at some point. But this is a key strategic area of the map, right? This one is certainly behind... Well, it was looking to be behind walls. It's going to get the walls up now. Getting access to the central gold veins is going to be key, and you can see Marinelord wanting to do just that. But one more gold vein back at home to rely on for now, just to buy some time. But the tech up time for Marinelord is going to be obviously relatively delayed for Myriad compared to Myriad. Myriad, they're already to the Imperial Age, and it's going to start spamming out those units most likely. Let's see what he's going for, actually. I was going to go for the Wingguard Rangers. I kind of like it, right? We knew that he was going to go up against plenty of crossbows. Bit of a raiding party here for Marinelord. And yeah, so Marinelord having so many of those crossbows means that the Rangers actually should help him deal with that. I was running into the keep, though. Not ideal. Gonna buy... it's actually a lovely position for Marinelord, I've got to say. It's going to take some time for the English to break through this area. Looks like he's going to tech up at this point here as well with the Great Wall Gatehouse when he does have the resources. Doesn't have it just yet. Good raiding here for Marinelord still with those horsemen. Forcing some man-at-arms back at home, but he's fighting underneath the keep, and there is an STBs. I don't think this is ideal for Myriad. He might have just overshot here a little bit, but he's going to try and make the most of it. Kill as many villagers as possible. The trouble is, he's being raided pretty heavily himself on the farms, and he's starting to lose on water economy. I think slowly but surely, Myriad's actually starting to make a bit of a an exit on water. Doesn't really feel like he's keeping up. He's got to deal with these horsemen, actually. These are being a bit of a pain. Moving up northeast with a couple of crossbows. Plenty of horsemen there for the Chinese. I've got to say, it's kind of looking a little bit awkward for Myriad, right? That tech up to the Imperial Age, it took a lot of steam out of him. He's got plenty of resources, to be fair. He needs to deal with this still. He's lost a lot of villagers to this raid. Only a handful of horsemen causing him all sorts of trouble. But certainly that tech up to the Imperial Age, it feels like the steam has kind of run out of the English sails at the moment. Quite literally on water. Similar fashion as on land. And he started to make those production buildings, and just as well, because he definitely needs to get some more units out. Going for the Wingguard army as well. We'll get a trebuchet out of that. And has got 6 of the relics, so plenty of gold for Myriad. Obviously he's got that long-term gold income from the enclosures tech as well, which he doesn't yet have, believe it or not. And that's actually kind of surprising. Sure, he has a good bank of gold, but I'm super surprised he's not clicked this. This has surely got to be one of the first technologies you click. The earlier you click it, the better value you get. And sure, you've got gold in the bank, but the more the merrier, right? You never know when you're going to start losing access to it. There's the first of trebuchets that I think he's going to need a couple of at least. Man-at-arms being sent this way, but the only problem for this army composition for Myriad, he doesn't have the mobility, he doesn't have the movement speed. These horsemen going to dive in and again start to get some raiding value. He's even ranging from the farms. This is actually a bit of an unfortunate placement on water on these farms. So close to the shoreline. Makes it a bit tricky. Does have a couple of carracks, though, to deal with this. I like the fact they're still fighting on water, actually, because there's still a lot of value that myriad can get. Or this could be a massive trap. The village is starting to repair. Doesn't seem like there's enough of them. There's only 3 of them in the end, and they will actually die. Very painful deaths. But it does get a couple of horsemen for that. The horsemen ride on through and ignore the man-at-arms entirely. But yeah, I think a couple of carrack or 2 and the fishing economy for marinelord could hurt him quite significantly. It is going to be the Great Wall Gatehouse protecting that farming transition, which is actually a massive one. So even if marinelord does get pushed off the water, ultimately it won't be too big of a deal. And there is that carrack working on the horseman. I mean, he's been doing this a lot, and it's actually kind of surprising how much value he's been getting out of it. Oh, nest of bees. 2 of them on the trebuchet. Myriad, he's not reacting. It's going to be painful. He's going for the trebuchet first, but imagine if he went in the villagers. I guess he wanted to keep up as long as possible, but maybe he doesn't see the villagers, to be fair. Oh, actually, he does have vision. He does. Oh, Myriad. Myriad. Hello. Okay. Oh, God. I mean, he loses a lot of HP. He doesn't lose the villagers in the end. He's going to continue mining gold. This guy is ballsy. He's definitely a brave lad to venture out back on there. But he needs gold, right? He needs to do it. And this is where things become a little bit tricky, right? The Chinese got access to the north. This gold vein, 8,000 for him. The keep is up. And bear in mind, their positioning of that keep is actually really significant. Like, you could easily make the mistake of placing the keep a little bit too close to the shoreline, and then a carrot could range it, right? But it's far sufficient inland that actually he'll be fine from any attacks on waters. He ends up fighting with the villagers instead. Yeah, Myriad very much off of water, but the food income still very solid, of course. And has he? Please tell me he's got enclosures. Okay, he's got it now. He's got it. Slowly but surely, kind of an interesting one, right? Because marinelord actually has a lot of static defenses. This is going to be a really hard spot to push on the left side. It feels like maybe there's a way to push on the right side. There is only one keep after all, but if he does that, like you can see marinelord's pressure coming in from the west side. It makes it tricky for Myriad to pivot to the right side, because he's doing it now though. Partially, at least with man-at-arms. Because if he does pivot to the right side, it almost leads to a base trade situation. Maybe even a landmark snipe situation. And factoring the mobility is a little bit poor for the English, going to one side of the map. Definitely leaves him vulnerable to the other side. Can't really make his way through. No boiling oil though, so there's man-at-arms. I'm surprised he's actually going for the walls. I really am. I think taking the keep out, maybe pressurizing this gold vein, because I think gold is the more key resource, right? I mean, ultimately on the map, marinelord has good access to food on the fish, so even if he kills farms, he's not going to run out of food, right? It's unlikely to be. But what he could run out of gold if he lost the keep and pressurized that location. Or pressured that location. Okay, guys on Twitch chat and YouTube comments, I did it. I fixed the mistake. I often say pressurized, which is not the right word, as people correctly mentioned. So we managed to correct that. I almost made the mistake. I did make the mistake and I corrected it. There we go, we're learning. It's had to be quite defensive here, Myriad, for a long period of time, and it is now though, starting to branch out, get a couple of man-at-arms across, and finally getting some raiding value of his own, but he's actually losing quite a lot here in the back. Look at that, 78 villagers killed so far by marinelord. He's switched from horsemen to the palace guards. This is actually looking a bit tricky. I wonder whether there's going to be a play into Yuan Dynasty. The extra movement speed could be important for marinelord and the Chinese, and that's exactly what he's doing. There's the Imperial Palace. I love this play. I'm not entirely sure where it's being built, but it's going to give him lots of vision anyway. It's on the right side. Yeah, he definitely wants that vision, but more importantly, it's the Yuan Dynasty. The extra movement on the infantry is important. Does lose one nest of bees. He's got 2 trebuchets that can't quite get close enough. This is certainly the big choke point. But the English are trying to navigate their way through. There's got so many resources here, Myriad. I think he needs more production. Going to try and get a keep on the right side, but it's a bit of a tricky one. Balshran's going to range quite a lot. Oh, these 2 palace guards. Myriad is not reacting. He's busy on the front line. Villagers go to build the keep. I mean, there's nest of bees. He does lose one. Another one remains. He lost his Springles here, Myriad, so it's going to be a bit tricky. Man-at-Arms actually managed to snipe one of those Springles in the end, which is huge. But Nesta B's getting some great shots. Now, I'm not so sure if this keep goes up. He's got the Wingard Rangers, but Nesta B's Myriad. Oh, God, this is going to be tough. Even if the keep goes up, he's definitely going to suffer some more losses, right? That next volley of Nesta B's killed a few villagers. Do something. I mean, either garrison or get out of there. Standing still should not be an option. And here come the trebuchets, who are going to be a really good standing position to fight from. Oh, Myriad is still going at it. These two, they're so rough, right? When you see that happening. 105 villagers lost. I mean, details like that, it hurts so much when it happens. And you know, with only 2 town centers, it's going to take time for that villager count to build up again. Now, one good thing for Myriad, though, is he does have a good bank of resources. If he didn't have such a good bank of resources, that raid would have been absolutely devastating. It is still pretty bad, but it's not something that Myriad can't recover from. It's definitely not ideal. And it is the Yuan dynasty giving the extra movement speed. Yeah, I mean, these are very precariously positioned farms. I gotta say, Myriad, he's playing with no fear throughout the whole game. I gotta give him that. It's lovely to see, actually. I think you have to play like that style if you're going to go up against players like marinelord. And we're seeing Myriad, you know, getting some good wins recently against the high-level pros, and the aggressive mentality is certainly paying dividends. He's made definitely a good fight of this one. Definitely in this one, for sure, still. Because marinelord is spending everything he's got, but he doesn't have a lot left. And I wonder how well he'll fare when the gold runs out. I mean, I think Myriad, one thing to bear in mind actually, Myriad doesn't actually have to be the aggressor. I don't feel like he has to be the one being super aggressive, right? Because ultimately, marinelord only has 2 relics. It's Myriad with 6. Don't forget the English have enclosures. Sure, the Chinese get the tax collection. I think I'd favour the enclosures though, any day of the week. Oh, Myriad diving a little bit too close for comfort there. There's a Great Wall Gatehouse. He's taken down the keep, which is a great start. 2 trebuchets firing on that keep of his own, Myriad. So it's going to be tricky to keep that alive, actually. That's a lot of palace guards. Look how fast they move. They're going to dive in really quickly. And the villagers on the farms, in the end, do have to venture out. And he will likely lose that keep before too long here, Myriad. Bit of an unfortunate situation. Going for the Carracks versus the Bashuan. As the Bashan will win that fight on the right side, and marinelord has kept most of his fishing economy alive. I love the fact there's a Carrack here. Wait, what? Is this not attacking? Wait, what the heck? Hello? Hello? Must be on stand ground. That's rough. Yeah, the only concern for Myriad is this gold vein is almost gone, right? So Myriad is hard focused and reliant on enclosures at this point. So at this point, it's going to be a tough next 10-15 minute hold. Like with the lack of gold, he can't produce these premium units as well as him anymore. Whereas marinelord, of course, can. And certainly getting sacred sites will help. Got 2 of them. And the Rex too, but there's nothing quite like mining gold in and of itself. Yeah, Myriad, he's vacating. He's not fancying this fight. Understandably so. Mostly, I think, because of those Nesta Bs. Doesn't quite manage to take him out with 2 Springles, of course. The astronomical clock tower component of the Chinese siege is actually really important. It makes it so much more difficult to take at Nesta Bs. Does manage to dive out there of the range a little bit. Yeah, he's starting to push back a little bit, Myriad. It's not looking too bad at all. It's the gold that's the problem. But you can say equally so for marinelord. We've got to say, Palace Guard numbers starting to dwindle as that front line for the Chinese. That does leave the crossbows a little exposed, but Nesta B is making some good work on the man-at-arms to clear a lot of them out. This is an absolute meat grinder of a game. I've absolutely loved it. Thoroughly enjoyed it so far. Hard to tell who's going to win this, actually. The only concern for Myriad, he doesn't have as healthy a villager lead or economy. So if he does actually start to run out of steam, if he loses his army, it might be a bit difficult to replace. And gold certainly will become an issue. But if he can keep chipping away, this gold on the right side for marinelord will not last forever. One thing I do fear about the situation though, these are only palisades. marinelord is making a play for the right, he's defending on the left. He's got the Great Wall Gatehouse after all, and this is where actually going for the Wingard you know, whilst he's giving us some great units, especially with the Wingard footmen, having a Berkshire Palace on this right side of the map possibly could have been a really good way to defend, but he's going to be up against it pretty soon. There's plenty of production buildings being built for Marinelord. Looks like he's going to go for a bit of a raid on the right side, and that could be a killer blow. Gotta say though, Myriad, he's making moves on the west side. That Great Wall Gatehouse is not going to be standing for too long if these trebuchets keep firing off. It's getting some good momentum here, Myriad. But he's just losing so many units, right? It's kind of crazy. You can tell by the destruction value. Man-at-Arms keep going on forward, and I mean, in a way the English can do this with the enclosures. They can keep spamming units, but there comes a point where he just starts to throw away units. It feels like we're heading in that position now. He's trying to buy time, I guess. Oh, this is a bit of a worrisome situation actually on the right side. You can see how many villages Myriad has lost in the game. That might start to escalate pretty soon again, once again. Oh, these Nester Bees. He's never really been able to deal with this Myriad. A Culverin or two could be working wonders. Springlords even would be fine. Uh-oh. This is not looking... I mean, those villagers do have to back away from that position. Wood could become an issue for Marinelord. There's actually kind of a struggle for wood. There's wood here, which you can see the English are trying to take. Oh no, the right side is still open, and Myriad is not... he's not focusing on that. That's the concern. And the Great Wall Gatehouse is being repaired. Ah, this is going to be rough. It feels like he's going to lose quickly on the right side if he doesn't deal with this. Myriad, he's not responding. Uh-oh. I mean, he's still pushing on out with outposts, but they're kind of getting taken down as quickly as they're being built with the two trebuchets. The big concern is this raiding, right? Myriad has lost a lot of villages already, doesn't have much in the way of static defenses. You can imagine a Berkshire Palace right here could have been working wonders. Not that I think it was a bad choice to go for the Wingard, not at all. It's just obviously you wish you could have both, couldn't you? You'd wish you could have both. He's still going to make a dash out. He might actually lose a couple of trebuchets here, Marinelord. Oh, a bit of an oversight there. Should lose that one, or the body blocks might come on in. Longbows does take it in the end, which is ideal. That will help him stave off any sort of structural damage coming in the back. But look at this. He's being surrounded around the right side. This is not looking good for Myriad. These palace guards are so difficult to deal with. Like, if you think the infantry are slow, they are, but not with the Yuan Dynasty. It actually transforms the palace guard into an incredible raiding unit. Sure, some of Man-at-Arms will chase up, and it does have the defender's advantage, but he's caused a lot of distraction. Quite low on villager count, and there it is, ladies and gentlemen. On the front lines, he was pushed back pretty heavily. He was raided on the right side. Myriad, he's run out of steam, but boy, oh boy, was it a great game of Age of Empires 4. If you guys enjoyed it on YouTube, make sure you give the video a thumbs up. More importantly, subscribe to the channel. Take care, and see you next time.